Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome. I am just getting settled in here. I think I'm live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you are joining me, welcome, and let me know that you're here. Say hi in the chat. And I am going to, whoops, I did not mean to pull that up yet. So I'm going to start by introducing myself to you. I'm going to let you know who I am, what I do, where I just came from. And I'm trying a new thing tonight, and I don't know, let's see how it works. But let me know that you're here. Amanda, hey, nice to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. So I'm trying a new thing tonight. One is, first of all, I'm going to talk to you about what you're doing wrong, which I don't usually do. But it's like in the context of like, it's not your fault that you're doing it wrong. And then, hey, Lisa, welcome. So we've got Amanda telling me, yes, I am live on LinkedIn, and Lisa stopping in to say hello. And L2 stopping in to say hi, bestie. Hey, bestie. Love it. So I'm trying something new tonight, and I'm excited about it. I'm gonna take your questions by text while we're doing this live. We're gonna see how that works out, because hopefully I don't get too overwhelmed by the screens. But I have learned that people in my community, people who are job hunting, people who are learning about executive coaching, people who want to stretch out and ask questions, do not want it associated with their names. And I get that, because I was that. I lived for a very long time where I was like, oh, I'd love to comment on this, but I don't want my employer to see me doing this. So here's what we're going to try tonight. And if you're just joining us and you don't know me, and like you're just new here and you just sort of fell in here, let me introduce myself. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive leadership coach, and I have a tagline, which is "Fine is a trap." And I firmly believe that we settle for less than we deserve, for less than we are. We undervalue ourselves. We say things are fine when they're not really fine. We say like, oh, it's fine. And we self-soothe. It's sort of a there. Oh, it's fine. They pay me a lot of money. Oh, it's fine. I'll get a promotion someday. Oh, it's fine. They made me a VP. This is what comes with the territory. And no, I say no to that. And so I'm super glad that you're all joining me tonight. And we've got more people coming in. I'm trying to pull up all your comments as they come. Kelly's here. Hey, and we've got Amber here. Awesome. And Amanda trying the text thing. Yes, I'm in for it. And Ashwin, thank you for joining us. I always love seeing you here. Amazing. And you spelled my name right, which like, I know it's right there, but a lot of times people don't spell Lefkowitz right. And amazing. We've got Elena saying hi. Awesome. Thank you so much all for being here. So here's what we're going to try tonight. I'm going to put a phone number up on the screen. It's a Google Voice number. And I'm going to ask you to text me questions. You're also welcome to put questions in the chat as I'm talking about how you're applying to the wrong jobs. But if you don't want to have your name associated with your question, go ahead and text it to me. It is not anonymous texting in that I will then have your phone number on my Google Voice phone number, but I won't probably have your name. I don't think Google Voice gives you names. And I will not say your name. Even if you identify yourself in the text, I won't say your name. The whole point of you being able to text me a question while we're talking about this stuff is that we get to talk about this stuff, and you don't have to worry like, ooh, I'm going to be up on the screen and my boss is going to see me. And it honestly, if your boss is in this conversation right now and you're in this conversation, you guys got to get out of that workplace. L2 says it's spelled Moskowitz, right? Yes. So just to explain that little inside joke, people get my name wrong all the time. Lefkowitz is hard. I get it. It's a lot of letters in a row. But I once left a voicemail for somebody and they called back and said that they were calling for Florence Moskowitz. And since I told Lauren Howard that story, she calls me Flo. And so if you ever hear her calling me Flo, that's why. Elaine, it's Alana. I did it wrong. So you get me, Alana Weinstein. Got it. I'm in for it. Thanks for the phonetic explanation. Okay, so I'm gonna put this number up on the screen. Cool, great. Okay, so here's what we're gonna be talking about tonight. Before you start texting me, here's what we're gonna be talking about. I work with people who are in the middle of their careers. They get to a point and they are like mad because they say they're fine, but they're mad because they've hit this point. They either have toxic management or they don't know how to set boundaries, or they've hit this, what feels like a ceiling in their careers, and they're applying for other stuff and they're not getting it, or they're applying for stuff and they're getting the interview and then they get lowballed on salary. And it's this like thing that just sort of knocks you down and knocks you down and knocks you down. And we end up then, and I say we because I've been there, we end up applying for jobs where we are willing to give things up, right? Almost 100% of the time when I work with a new client, when they come to me, they are coming to me with, I want to switch careers, or I want to get a promotion, or I want to move into nonprofit, or I want to move out of government, or whatever it is. And I'm willing to. And it's take a pay cut, take a title cut, start over, start from the bottom. I get that I'll have to start over. And I say no. Not only do I say no to that, but probably where you are and what you're doing, you are being overutilized. You're doing extra stuff. You're doing stretch projects that have turned into, now they're part of your job. Or you are just underselling yourself and you're accepting less money than you should be accepting. You're accepting fewer responsibilities. For many of my clients who come to me, within a couple of months, we are applying to jobs that are 1 level, 2 levels higher. 10,000, 20,000, double the salary higher. Now, I am not a job search coach, and I know how the job search works. So once I get into the executive coaching part of this, which is where we figure out who you are, how you want things to be, and then what you actually want out of all of that, then the job searching begins and the confidence building within the job search begins. And I work with you on that. But I don't, like, you can't just come to me and say, like, give me a resume and a cover letter and train me on how to job search, because that's not the problem. The problem is your confidence level. The problem is your imposter syndrome. The problem is that you do not believe that you are as amazing as you are. So we get you to believe that you're as amazing as you are, and then we get you going to the right places. And whether it's applying for another job or going towards another career, or whether it's just like staying in the same place, but learning to set boundaries and speak up for yourself. Like, that's what I work with people on. And so tonight I want to talk specifically about how you're applying to the wrong jobs. And I think I see some texts coming in. And let's see what we've got here so far. Nope, that's just a text. That's just a personal text. So I'm not going to bring that one up on the screen. But if you've got a question about this, or if you are super frustrated right now because you've been applying for jobs and you're not getting any traction, or you're getting calls and you make $90,000 and all of these places are offering you 60 and 70 and saying like, nobody's going to pay someone with your experience at that level. Then, you know, there's a disconnect. There's either you're not recognizing your own value, or you are not applying to the right jobs, the right companies. And I want you to be successful. My life's mission is to make it so that people like you, all of you out there, recognize how freaking amazing you are and like get the things that you're going after, get the jobs that you deserve. So let's see here. We've got some comments coming in. And let's see here. Lauren is commenting on Alana and also has that spelling and was offended for you, Alana. My apologies again. We've got a hello. We've got, let's see. Okay, more laughs. John says, "You're sweet Jesus. You're talking about me." Exactly. Are you calling me sweet Jesus? Because I don't really need that height of a title. I'll just stick with executive leadership coach. Cool. So what questions do we have that, and I'm happy to just talk, right? Like I got stuff to say, but what questions do we have about like how you recognize your own value, and how you ask for and get the money that you need? And Ashwin is saying, yeah, and yes, 100%. This also applies to freelancing, a lifetime of selling myself short. Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about old me. I'm going to put that number up again. Let me tell you a little bit about old me. So former Lauren Lefkowitz was a workaholic. I worked really hard for a lot of years. I worked upwards of 80 to 100 hours a week. I kept taking on more because I felt like I was never doing enough. And when I got something like really streamlined and I was good at it and nobody else had to worry about it, I just assumed everybody would forget that that was a thing I worked on. So I worked on more. And I became the interim vice president of whatever you need. And that worked out really well for the companies that I worked for because they got 2, 3, 4 jobs out of me at a time. It worked out really well for me because I learned a lot. And when I left to make my side gig a full-time business, there was a lot of knowledge and experience that I had that other people who have gone out on their own didn't have. That being said, I did not do this on my own. I got a lot of support in building what I have built, and I am a huge advocate of that. But in my old life, old Lauren, I used to think that I was supposed to do everything by myself. And the reason I thought I was supposed to do everything by myself was because if you came to me with anything, I figured out how to solve it. I didn't send you to another place. I didn't say, I don't know, this seems unsolvable. I just handled it. And my brain, which our brains lie to us, my brain told me that if I could figure out everybody else's stuff, then surely I could figure out my own stuff. And if I couldn't figure out my own stuff, then my own stuff was not figure outable. And so here I was stuck being me, helping other people advance their careers because I'd been side gigging and coaching for years and years and years. But like poor me, I couldn't have that. And I'll tell you, most of my clients are those people. They're people like me who think they have to handle everything by themselves. Y'all. I don't say y'all a lot. I'm actually not from the South. I live in the South now, south of the Mason-Dixon line anyway. But I'm adopting y'all. I'm heading towards it. We got our first text. This is very exciting. And I'm just having trouble being on 2 screens. So bear with me as I rookie my way through this, please. Here we go. Okay. We have a question from somebody. That's the beauty of this. I'm incredibly frustrated looking for employment. I have virtually no work experience, but over 20 years of volunteer work in the same industry. Oh, interesting. What's interesting to me is that you are discounting that volunteer work is work. And when you are a volunteer who actually does the work, like not a volunteer who comes in and stuffs envelopes, right? But a volunteer who actually is like filling a position, which happens a ton in nonprofits. I kind of don't care if you were paid or not paid for that work. And I would call it pro bono. And it's very altruistic that you've been willing to volunteer for all of this time, that you've been willing to give your time and energy and skill set for no money. And that is real work. So when you are putting together your resume, when you are applying for jobs, it's important to figure out what that job is worth in the market. And I'll talk a little bit about how to figure out what a job is worth, sort of. It fluctuates a lot. But work is work is work. Experience is experience. For many years, I did a lot of work for no money. And I started early in my career. My background is 20 years of HR work. And when I moved into HR, immediately people were saying, can you look at my resume? Of course. And first I started looking at resumes. Then I started rewriting resumes. Then I started helping people write cover letters. Then I started training them on how to apply for jobs and how to interview. And that sort of organically rolled into towards what I do now, which is people were coming to me and saying, like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And so here I got to where I helped people figure out what they wanted to be when they grew up. And I didn't realize that was a job. I didn't realize that was a career. So people were either not paying me for many of the years, and not because I felt like they were taking advantage of me, but because I didn't see the value in the work. And then it got to the point where people would start insisting on paying me something. And I would just sort of pull a number out of the $100, right? I don't know. And so learning to recognize my own value and learning to recognize what my work is worth, both from a corporate perspective and from a freelance perspective, and then eventually an I own my own company perspective, required help. It required finding the expertise of people who knew how to charge for this, how to structure a relationship, a business relationship. So back to the person who sent me the text, and thanks for sending it and helping me test out this system and making sure that it works. 20 years of volunteer work in the same industry is not nothing. It is important. It is valuable. And the fact that you haven't been paid for it says something about your giving nature and your not having monetized it. So something you may want to look into is, do you contract for a little while so that you can get your own confidence to get that paid work? Do you work through a temp agency and point out to them that you have 20 years of unpaid work experience? Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. I don't actually think you have to do that. But what you have to do versus what your opportunities are to do things, there's a baseline of confidence and a baseline of ownership of your value that you need to learn in order to be confident about asking for money for your work. And I don't want you to work for no money anymore. I want you to start volunteering when you have so much darn money that, like, you have all this extra time, you've been on all the vacations, and you want to volunteer again. But giving 20 years of your life to volunteer work, so beautiful and so giving and so altruistic, and such a way to, unfortunately, learn to devalue your own monetary value. So I'm rooting for you. Feel free to DM me if you want any more insight on that. But thank you for texting. I really appreciate it. I've got another question coming in, but I want to address the how to find out what jobs pay question. And the unsatisfying answer is that it varies a lot. And so the same job that's called a manager across 3 different companies could be paying $60,000 to $300,000. So when you're looking at job descriptions, you really want to look at what are they requiring and what are they asking you to do in the job. That's more important. And I'm not going to speak to like, there are a lot of job descriptions that are very poorly written, but there are some that are good out there. And so if you go to salary.com, for example, you will find all kinds of measures, including geography and title and level and years of experience and all of that. And so you can do a little bit of looking at what jobs that have the level of experience for the job you're looking at are paying. But again, you'll see like a bell curve and there's going to be variance there. You will see on Glassdoor so much variance because Glassdoor guesses. So do not believe Glassdoor. If there's one thing you take from tonight, it's that if you look at jobs on Glassdoor, they're going to probably tell you an underpayment. Some of them are like just so wildly off that they look like an overpayment. But when I worked for one of the companies I worked for, the company administration was very anti posting the salary. I since got stronger about that. And before I left corporate, I was posting salaries, but that was the situation there. And I would look at the Glassdoor estimates for how much jobs were paying. And I would look at a manager level job that was paying probably 60 to 75. And Glassdoor would guesstimate it at 26,000 to 32,000. So do not believe Glassdoor. And I reached out to them at one point and they said, well, tell us what your salaries are. And my company wouldn't allow me to. And so they do that actually as a marketing ploy to get employers to release their salaries so that they can do data collection and run their own and sell their own reports. So like smart move, Glassdoor, but also kind of dirty. Okay. So back to our other question. So this texting thing, y'all, is working because here we have a second one coming right in. I love it. And keep them coming. I have a good day job, but I want to pivot into being a freelance copywriter. Should I give my notice and get a small business loan to live off of while solely focusing on building up my business? Or should I build up writing as a side hustle and get clients / work before I leave the day job, or some other option? That's a big question. It depends. I can't give you the direct advice because it does depend. Everybody's money mindset is different. And I come from a money mindset of like squirrel the money away in case you need it for an emergency, and there's always going to be an emergency, right? It's not a healthy money mindset for me. And it's something that I'm working on and that I continue to work on. Today, in fact, I'm a person who leaves things in my online cart for like a year. Today, I bought a clock that's been in my online cart for literally a year. And I have the worst bedside clock. It's so bad that I turned off the light on it because the light is either like on real bright and or totally off. So it's been off for a year. So I've had no clock next to my bed. Not that I necessarily need one, but I don't know. I feel like I need one. And I just bought it today and I was like patting myself on the back for doing that. And then I'll go out to dinner with friends and I'll spend as much money as I want to spend. Like it's not that I'm so frugal that I don't spend any money, but my money mindset is based on me being safe. That being said, I am also a person who loves to take out a credit card that has a no interest for 15 months and like play that game. And I always pay it off before the deadline. But I can use it to make a big purchase and have no interest. And so I say all of that because when you ask me, should I take out a small business loan? My brain is like, no, that's so dangerous. But I don't live on loans. I live on credit cards, which I guess is technically a loan, but I always pay them off before there's any interest. And so in my brain, a loan for a small business comes with interest. And for me personally, that feels like a big what if. For other people, that's the baseline they need to say like, cool, I've got X amount of time to pay this back. So I've got X amount of time to make this business successful. Here's what I will say. I freaking love being a business owner. I will never go back to corporate life. And somebody, if you see me applying for jobs somewhere, for full-time jobs, I want you to come back and throw this in my face, because I love the freedom of working for myself, of deciding how my day goes, of deciding how my life goes. I also worry about income, right? Because I'm an entrepreneur. So some months I'm like Scrooge McDuck swimming in my gold coins. And some months I'm like, where are all the people? And that's part of what comes with an entrepreneurship. And so, or freelancing. And so for me, that risk reward was not so challenging that the like reward made it worth it. I'm really bad at explaining that. But you know, if you sort of like weigh the scales, the risk has to be so much worse than the potential reward for me to not do it. And so I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. I would ask yourself some questions. First, I would ask yourself, do you know what you're worth as a freelancer, as a freelance copywriter? And I'm willing to bet you don't. And I'm willing to bet that the hourly rate that's in your head is about half of what you should be charging, or less. You know, should you start a side hustle first? You know, I went from 80 to 100 hours a week working to learning to set boundaries, to then learning to work fewer hours a week. And so all of a sudden I had all this time to build my business as a side hustle first. And so I side hustled for a few months before I saw that there was enough consistency in my business and its growth to feel like I could leave and I would have enough consistency in income. But again, enough is like such a big question. So I would talk to a business coach about this. I wouldn't necessarily sign up with a business coach right away. I did. I signed up with a business coach who helped me give my notice in 3 months. Katie McManus, if you're looking for a business coach, amazing. She works mostly with coaches and consultants. And she does work with freelance copywriters. I do not get paid for these ads. But talk to a couple of business coaches, or at least one business coach, and see what they think you should be charging, what it looks like to be a freelance copywriter, right? Talk to some freelance copywriters who are successful. Talk to some who went back to an office job because they couldn't make the freelance gigs work. And think about too, like, are you the type of person who can discipline yourself to do the work? Or are you the type of person who needs people coming at you all the time, right? And so when you say freelance copywriter, do you want to own your own business, or do you want to be like going to agencies and working through them? So there's a lot to think about. I'm sorry I can't give you a direct answer for that, but I will tell you this, based on the title of tonight's talk, is that you probably are thinking that you are worth less than you are worth. Because if you are already a good copywriter, you have value. If you know how to write copy in the voices of other brands, other people, you have value. And you don't have to do free work to prove that you can do the work, right? If I came in here and I told you that I was a swim instructor, you have no reason to question me. True story, I was an advanced beginner swimmer for 7 summers in a row at camp. And every year I would come back with my American Red Cross advanced beginner passed card, and they would test me again and they would put me back in advanced beginner. So do not hire me as your swim coach. That said, executive coaching is right up my alley. So I want to go back to talking about, and please, if you've got more questions, text them to this number that's on the screen. And if you are joining us a little bit late, this is a Google Voice number that I've now acquired. And If you text me, I don't get your name, which I've now verified because we've got 2 texts in. But I do get your phone number, but I won't use it for anything. I don't text businessy stuff. And I will delete these after this call. You can tell me who you are in the text, or you can not tell me who you are. I am not telling anybody who anybody is if you're texting me questions, because I want people to feel like they can ask a confidential question for job searching, so that they're not worried that their bosses or their companies are on this chat and seeing them. If you want to ask a question in the chat, or you want to comment on something in the chat, come on in, bring it on. So I want to go back to you're applying for the wrong job, because this is where I get some heat from people and some but kind of answers. When you go apply for a job that is the same as the job you've already done, right? So let's say that you are a benefits administrator, right? And your job is internally inside of a company to administer the benefits for the company, but you're not the decision maker. You don't talk to the vendors really, except for when you have to fix a customer service issue. And you're fairly entry level benefits administrator. When you go and apply for a job as a benefits administrator in another company, they're going to look at your resume and they're going to say, this person's already done this job. What are they going to stay here? 3 months? They want somebody who wants a growth opportunity. And I'm speaking in broad generalizations. So keep that in mind, that there is no one answer to any of this. The answer is always going to be, it depends. But I'm giving you what I see all the time, which is people undervaluing themselves. So that's an entry-level job, right? You're benefits administrator. I talked to somebody several months ago in a networking group who was a benefits administrator, and she was trying to get other benefits administrator jobs. And she said, I just don't have that much experience. And when we talked about it, she actually had 8 years of experience that she wasn't giving herself credit for, because we tend to devalue ourselves. We tend to make ourselves smaller. And because she'd been a benefits administrator for 8 years, she started to know some stuff. She knew how the carriers worked, and she knew how the customer service issues worked. And so she actually had a lot more knowledge than she was giving herself credit for. And by the end of our little group's conversation, she was ready to apply for higher level jobs. Now that's an entry level position, but I see this at all levels. I see directors going for director positions. I see managers going for manager positions. And when you do that, you tend to get pay cuts, which sounds weird. You go for a job where you've been making, I don't know, $95,000, right? And you're applying for jobs that have the same title. Well, when those companies do bring someone new in, they're expecting someone who's going to be at the lower end of the range to come in. So they're going to lowball in a lot of companies anyway. There are some companies that are absolutely amazing and actually just pay you what you're worth, or have ranges that are broad enough to pay you what you're worth. But there are a lot of companies who will lowball you. So if you're making $95,000 over here as a director of blah, 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 and then you go over here to this company and they're like, cool, this person already has experience, offer them 80. This also happens a lot during layoffs, that you get laid off and you get sort of knocked down a little bit. And so you accept what you get offered and you're afraid to negotiate. So I see people who go from $100,000 jobs down to 90, down to 70, because they've been in 2 layoffs and now they're just knocked down and devalue their own work, devalue their own value, think that this one job that they had was just lucky. And give us an opportunity give companies rather an opportunity to just take stuff away from you, right? And not be generous and not be equitable in what they're offering. So when I talk to people, and some people come and work with me and some people don't, I will always give everybody who is genuinely interested in looking into executive coaching a half-hour free strategy call. I will talk to you about how much money you're making, how much money you want to be making, how much money I think you should be making based on our conversation. If that's your priority, sometimes that's not the priority. Sometimes it's just like, I'm so overwhelmed and I need to figure out who I want to be when I grow up, and we don't even talk about money. So the strategy calls are based on what your motivation is. But almost always when I have a networking call or strategy call with somebody and we talk about their salary, we get off the call with them being ready to apply to a position that's 1 or 2 levels above where they are. Most of my clients, all of my clients for whom salary and elevation, promotion was a priority, either are applying for or have gotten a job that is at least $10,000 more and sometimes double. And it's not because I'm made of magic. I mean, I am made of magic, but it's not because I'm made of magic. It's because they get confident in hearing what they're worth, in talking about what they're worth, in going after the jobs that are 1 and 2 levels up and applying for the jobs that seem terrifying, and they get them because they see the opportunity for upward mobility. They go and apply for those jobs. They get those jobs. And you may be sitting over there thinking, John says, that's happened to me twice, still digging today out of that hole. And then I'm laughing not at that, but at the correction. Oops, digging out. And Lauren Howard saying that she can confirm that I'm made of magic. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. One of the reasons that you're not getting the bigger jobs with the bigger money is because you're not applying to the right jobs. The other reason is because you are undervaluing yourself in your resume, in your cover letter, in how you talk about yourself in interviews. And that is that's a big topic. I could talk about that. I could have like a full day conference just on how we talk about ourselves as professionals. And I got a text. I got a third text. Y'all, this is working. I'm going to pull that number back up. I'm not going to tell you who that text is from, but it was just from somebody who's in this audience saying hi, but I'm not going to tell you who the text is from because that feels like a trick, because I said I wouldn't identify anybody who texted me, even if they put their name in. So good trick, yo. So the other issue when you're applying for the wrong jobs is that if you do start applying for the right jobs, you're the manager applying for a senior director job, you're a director applying for a VP job, you're a VP applying for a CEO job, you are writing your resume based on the job you were hired to do. Even if you're writing the accomplishments, I see so often, and I don't do resume writing anymore as a standalone. I do it with some of my clients as a collaborative build, so that I have the expertise on how to write a resume, but my client has the ability to pitch in and be in their resume and write their resume for themselves with me as support. You believe it more if you're involved in writing it. I am not saying not to use resume writers. For a lot of people, resume writing feels like the biggest nightmare, feels too hard, and you will gain the confidence going to the right resume writer and having them ask you the right questions and elicit from you what level you were and what your contribution was and what you accomplished versus what we accomplished versus what the team accomplished versus what your manager assigned to you, all of those things. If you go to a good resume writer, you can have like a killer resume, but you have to believe it then. And that is sometimes a challenge. But what we tend to do on our resumes is we tend to talk about the things we did as opposed to the things that we accomplished. And we tend to knock ourselves down a step, right? So at my last company that I worked at, I was VP of HR and operations and kind of whatever else you could think of. And part of my job was actually benefits administration, right? So because I was an HR department of one, part of my job was sending in benefits paperwork, troubleshooting when somebody's claim was wonky or when they didn't get their benefits card or their enrollment didn't work out. Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. Was that part of my job? For sure. I also built the benefits package and negotiated with vendors and chose the broker and switched brokers when our broker wasn't serving us. And while we're at it, our payroll system's kind of a mess. So let's redo that. And so my responsibilities were strategic. And I did the implementation. I did the sort of groundwork and execution. But I was a strategist. And if I didn't own that I was a strategist, my resume would have said, coordinate, execute, and maintain benefits. That's not a vice president level responsibility. So we don't want to brag. We tend to say we assisted when we actually coordinated. We coordinated when we actually managed. We managed when we actually led. We led when we actually oversaw other people who led. We say we oversaw when we were actually strategizing. We knock ourselves down because we don't want to get too big on our britches. We don't want to get too braggy or too bold. And we have this fear. We have this fear that we're going to get caught lying. And so we downgrade ourselves. So if you're applying for jobs that are at your level and your resume is just below your level, then you're going to get an offer that's like just below what you're making. So the key is to really own your greatness, to really figure out, who are you? What makes you special? What happens when you're in the room on a project? What happens when you're leading the project? What happens when you're in charge of people and things? And what happened at the company that you're working at, in the department that you're working at, in the role that you're working at, that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been the person in that position? And figure out what makes you magic, what makes you made of fairy dust. And that's the stuff that you need to own. And then you quickly become worth more and more and more. So we've got another text coming in, and keep the comments coming. And John just asked if my magic is Moskowitz magic. And yes, it is. For all of you who are joining late, Moskowitz is not John mistaking my last name. It's a little joke where I got a return phone call once for a Florence Moskowitz, and similar to Lauren Lefkowitz. So we've got another text. I was on a coffee chat the other day and was told two things that stood out to me: integrative strategist and industry agnostic. Those are fancy terms. I felt those two things resonated with me, and I'm trying to determine how to work those in. In your opinion, are those good terms to use? I'm still trying to figure out what they mean. So they sound fancy. Integrative strategist. So integrative strategist sounds to me like you're big on the strategic side, and you see all the pieces and can pull them together, right? Like deductive reasoning and big strategy and project and people management and cross-functional stuff. So it's not that I don't think you can say integrative strategist, but it's taking me a minute to get it, I guess. So if you're going to be fancy with integrative strategist, which you can for sure, I would call myself a strategic generalist on the HR side, and a bunch of people would be like, what does that mean? So I think if you own it and you have language around it that explains what that means, sure, absolutely, go ahead and own that. Industry agnostic is interesting. So there are a lot of people who have worked in a bunch of industries, and I have too. I worked in retail, I worked in investments, and I worked in nonprofit. And then I also did some pro bono work and some consulting work, and I worked with a dog walking company. I worked pro bono for some nonprofits. I've done some stuff at the university level. So I guess I'm industry agnostic too. What I don't love about that particular term is that it makes it sound like you don't care about what industry you're in. as opposed to you're an expert in many industries. So I would shift that a little bit to talk about expertise across a variety of industries, cross-industry expertise, if you want to do it in that order. I might also, if you are going to an industry where you do have experience, so let's say that you have experience in fintech, finance technology. Let's say you have experience in fintech and you also have experience in all the things I just said, retail and finance and nonprofit. I would highlight in your professional summary or your executive summary, if you're brave enough to use the word executive, which I think you should use if you're a director or above. But if you're going to put that in your summary, and by the way, do not use objective. Get it, even if you're entry level, get it out of your head. Objective is like, please, please, please hire me for this job. I'll be so good. That is not how interviewing and jobs work. The way that they work is a partnership. I know how to do this. I need this. Does that match? That should be the mentality. And we still live in this pick me society where we're like hoping to be picked by the employer. And I know the industry does it. I know that the mess of ATS systems does that, which is redundant to say ATS because the S in ATS is systems. But it's anyway, I'm getting off track. I'm all over the place tonight. I'm kind of loving it. So do I think it's good to be industry agnostic? Sure. In some respects, absolutely. But I don't want you to downplay your agnosticism because in my view, it makes it sound like jack of all trades, master of none. And there's jack of all trades who's a master of many things. And there's a jack of all trades who like never got their hooks into anything. And so they feel like they're all over the place. And industry agnostic has the danger of making you sound like the latter, like you never got really good at any one thing. So you kept sort of jumping around industries. So again, it's the ownership. It's how you talk about it in your executive summary. It's how you talk about the strength of you having experience in multiple industries, as opposed to you talking about what doesn't really matter what industry I'm in, which I know is not what you mean when you say industry agnostic, but it can come across that way if you don't stress the importance that you know the industry, that you get it. Amazing. These questions are so awesome. Thank you so much for asking them. Cool. Well, it looks like we are starting to wind down, and I've been here for a while, and I'm like a little bit tired because when I was right before this, I was in a laughter yoga session, laughing my tail off. And so thank you so much for being here tonight. If you've got other questions, if you are wondering more about what this is all about, if you've got other topics you want me to talk about live, I'm like all in for this, text questions jazz. You can text me with a topic idea. You can DM me, you can reach out to me. And thank you so much for being here. Your interactiveness made this really, really fun. And I'm glad to be back live. I was sort of quiet for a little while and like, I'm back in it. So here we are. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.